Hey everybody, just stood up here to do a round the world update, and we got lucky. My rubber lip pleco is on the glass right there in front of us. I know it's kind of dark where he is. I'm afraid if I get too close too quickly it will run and hide. It's a very shy fish, so I'm really glad we're getting to see it at all. He's about 3 years old now, maybe a little more than 3 years old. So I have people ask me all the time how big they get, and I have seen them listed up to 7 inches, but I don't believe that for a minute. This one's actually a pretty thick and chunky one. He seems to have stopped getting longer and is just kind of getting thicker, and he's maybe 3.5 inches. So I would say maybe 4 to 4.5 tops for a rubber lip pleco. I do have a few others in some other tanks, but this is the longest one I've had. The other ones are fairly new. This guy is, like I said, about 3 years old. So he's pretty cool. I'm glad he came out right as I started this video. Otherwise, we were going to have to start this video on kind of a bummer, because unfortunately I did lose a fish in this tank this week. My turquoise angelfish, the female of my mated couple, died, and I think it was just due to old age. I'd had her for several years, and she was already an adult when I bought her. I have no idea how old she actually was. So I just put it down to old age. She showed all the signs of just sort of fading away over the last few months. So I'm not really concerned that there's anything going on with the tank particularly. I did have someone ask me about why some of those glowfish look like they're ready to explode. They do look like they're suffering from dropsy, but I don't know how to answer that either. They've looked like that for well over a year now. They are glowfish, so they're genetically modified. They're not dyed. So they have not been injected with anything. They're not the tattooed fish or the dyed fish. That's a very cruel practice that causes no end of injury and distress to the animals, the ones that survive it, that is. These have been genetically modified, so say what you will about GMOs, it's not the same sort of cruel practice, although there are plenty of other discussions we could have about GMOs. But that aside, I do believe it's affected their health. Out of all the ones I've had over the years, when I first got into fish keeping, I was kind of fascinated by them as a novelty fish, and I got all the different colors, and none of them lived very long, especially the yellow ones. The blue ones have lived for a few years, and I have a purple one upstairs that has been alive for about 3 years. That was the very first one I ever bought. So I'm really surprised that these blue ones are still alive after all the time I've had them, and the fact that some of them look like they're all puffy, and one of them in there has a bladder issue, so he has to swim right there in dead center. He has to swim constantly to stay afloat. You know, I've seen plenty of other fish with that sort of issue, and they've lived for, you know, plenty of time. So he's been like that for about 1.5 years. He's swimming around in there, so I'm not too worried about that either. So that's all that's really going on in that tank. That is my 29-gallon miscellaneous. This tank here is my Gourami tank. Excuse me. And the only thing I've got going on in here is I've done a big water change and plant removal very recently. I didn't shoot any video of it, as I often do, but you can clearly see how light and bright and open it is. Maybe I'll intersperse a little before and after section here. And you'll be able to see what the difference between the original tank and what it looks like now. So that was just a few days ago. I cut a bunch of the tiger lotus out of there. I removed a ton of the water sprite that was floating in there, and then of course I removed a ton of the tannin stained water. Now I did, look, there's one of my rubber lip plecos on the back glass back there. He's fairly new though. He's only about a month old. And that is the other thing I've got going on in here. I was going to mention that I saw my little Farlowella twig catfish in here this evening, so he is still alive. That's the first time I've seen it in quite a while, so I'm kind of happy to see that. But one of the things I've done recently, if you do follow my videos, has been really reducing the organics in my tank and really reducing how much I've been feeding them. It was an attempt to see if I could just sort of get the algae under control without really doing any work other than just changing the way I manage my tanks. And at first I even cut back on the lighting, but I found that to be unnecessary, and I've gone back to my original amount of lighting. And just simply by cutting back on my food to a bare minimum, I have completely removed the algae from my tank to the point where I'm actually concerned about these off-wax grazers like this rubber lip pleco right there. I've got several sinkless. I've got a Hillstream loach in here, and then of course I have that Farlowella that I just mentioned. So I have a lot of fish in here that really need to eat biofilm and eat algae, and this tank has just been stripped clean of it. There's none left in there. So I do have my big pile of gouramis hiding back here in the corner. Normally they come up to the glass and are begging for food when I walk up. It's kind of unusual. They must know I've got a camera in my hand. I swear fish are born with the knowledge of what a camera looks like. And whatever they were doing before you picked up the camera, you can be assured they will stop doing it the moment you pick up the camera. So that is my gourami tank. Again, not a whole lot going on in there other than big water change, nice and cleaned up, looking good. Really think I went too far the other direction, and I really need to sort of boost my organics back up and maybe leave the light on a little longer to get some of my algae and off-walks growing back in there. In the meantime, I've been stepping up my algae wafers so that everybody does have something to eat in there. I don't want any of my fish to starve. So moving on, we've got the Angelfish tank. Once again, nothing really going on in here other than basically the same exact thing. Let me step around my table right here. Excuse me. Not a lot going on in here. We did a water change about 2 weeks ago. I've been keeping an eye on the organics. Everything's looking fine in here. I don't really have anything to worry about. I'm under 30 parts per million on the nitrates. Phosphates aren't even worth checking. If the nitrates aren't that high, then I know my phosphates aren't that high. The only thing I may do with this tank is I may pick one of the angels out of here to move over into the 29. Most of the fish in here are simply mixed veils that I got for a very low amount of money. I know it's hard to see them because I got so much vegetation above them. It really blocks the light out of the tank. And then of course on camera it comes out even darker. So this one here is an albino red eye, and then somewhere in here, hiding up in this back corner, I've got a German blue angelfish, and then all the other ones in here are actually just mixed veils that I got for a couple of bucks at one of the big chain stores. I know they look gorgeous, but they're really nothing special or nothing fancy. And in fact, the big male that I've got in my 29 was the same deal. He was like a $4.99 mixed veil that I got, and that's what he turned out to look like. So one of these may come out of here and go into that tank. I really made a mistake of putting all these Serpé tetras in there when I did. I really should have not done that. I did not realize these are one of the few tetras that are real fin nippers, and they really do harass my angelfish quite a bit. But it's a fine balance between giving the angelfish plenty of roots to hide in and plenty of plants to hide in. I've got about 15 of the Serpés in there, so they've got themselves to chase around. And then as long as I keep the Serpés well fed, it keeps the fin nipping to a minimum. And the angels are cichlids, and they do chase each other, and they're used to a little bit of aggression. So I'm not really worried about it. As long as no real injuries occurring, I'm not too concerned about it. But I don't recommend doing it yourself. I do recommend, however, getting red Serpé tetras, and these are long finned. I've got a mix of long finned and the regulars. But they're absolutely stunning fish, and when they get into full breeding color and the males are really showing off, they turn absolutely crimson red. Their fins get jet black with white tips on them, and they are really, really pretty fish. So definitely recommend them, but I do not recommend putting them with any long finned fish. They are nippers. So that's all that's really going on in the angelfish tank. The T-bar tank, I've got not a lot going on in here at the moment, but I may very soon. I'm getting really tired of looking at that UV filter in the back there. That's just a damn eyesore to me. I know we got glare off of everything, but it's still not hard to see with the glare or not. And then of course that heater, I've got a heater that's too long for it, and so I couldn't put it in upright. I can't stand a heater at a cockeyed angle like that. I like them upright and tucked away in the corner where you don't notice them. I don't like to see the hardware in my tanks, and that is a big eyesore to me. So I might be doing something to that, even if it's just covering it up or hiding it with something. I don't know, but I'm getting really tired of looking at that. Otherwise, the only thing else I've got going on in this tank is that I also recently put some rubber lips in here just to sort of get a control on all the algal growth, because this tank was really bad with that long strand hair algae. I used to get it all over the glass and all over everything, and in fact, if you look at the top of the Java there, you can still see like long strands of it. So it's still in the tank and it's still growing. It's just now under control because, once again, I've cut way back on the feeding, and I've got some off-flux and algae eating fish in there. That's my T-bar cichlid right there. And you can probably tell why I'm on the fence about getting rid of him. He's destroying my tank, and he's a brute, and he's mean. But just look at him. I mean, he is absolutely fantastic looking fish. And he's pretty cool in his own way. I got like a love-hate thing going on with him. I can never really decide whatever's going to happen to him. But in the meantime, he's still in here sort of digging up my plants and moving all the dirt around wherever he wants it. He's keeping my black ghost knifefish a prisoner in its cave down here. Although that black ghost knifefish is getting really big, and I saw it kind of giving him what for the other day. So I don't think it's going to be long before the tables turn, and this guy's going to be running from that black ghost. It's getting big. So back to what I was talking about with the rubber lips. You can see the rocks in there. This one's shiny. It's like, you know, whitening out on the camera. You can see the track marks they're leaving all over that. This rock's almost completely cleaned off. That rock is new, I have to say. I put that in there to hold that plant down since the T-bar keeps uprooting it. So that's not shiny from the fish, that's shiny from me putting it in there. And then you can see the wood, where the wood's been scraped from the rubber lip pleco in here. A lot of my plants are getting cleaned off and scraped clean. So all in all, the tank is really starting to look good again from not doing anything other than cutting way back on the feeding and letting those rubber lips do their thing and have their way with the off-flux in the tank. So it's been a really good experiment. It's been really successful, almost too successful, like I said. So moving on to my 20 long open top. Getting my tanks confused here. I am in love with this tank at the moment. The way my chair sits in this room, I'm sort of by default, I'm kind of pointing at this tank, and I have to look around at the other one. So I kind of look at this tank all day. And for the last, I don't know, while, I'll say, I've been kind of unhappy with it and sort of dissatisfied. It's been devoid of anything other than small schooling fish and some plecos that hide on the bottom. The plants weren't really doing much that I was liking. And it was full of algae, and it was green and overgrown. So recently again, my new approach, you know, cutting way back on the feeding, has just eliminated the algae in this tank with the plecos that are in there. Or I guess technically they're not plecos. Someone pointed out they are ancestor species. They are Luriacaridae, but they are not actually plecostomus. They are ancestris. And I don't know exactly what species the one is, but there's 4 of them in there that are chocolate zebras. So whether they're plecos, ancestris, whatever, that's splitting hairs. I've got 5 little plecos in the bottom, is like I think of it. And they have kept the tank very clean now that I've reduced the amount of food I'm putting in there. I'm just keeping my organics much lower. So not long ago, I actually took that Madagascan rainbow fish out of my brackish tank and put it in here. And I don't know why I didn't do that long before. The answer had been staring me in the face. So he makes a great fish to be in there by himself, and he gives just enough stress and concern to my schooling fish that they now pack tightly together and they swim in a school and they look great. And I also added some water sprite in here, which I'm getting, you know, mad growth coming up out of the water and everything already, which looks awesome. I really love water sprite. It's one of my favorite aquatic plants. And then of course that's my temple plant over there that I keep cutting and getting bushier and bushier, and it's already as you can see growing up over and around the light fixture, so I'm gonna have to get in there and trim that back again here pretty soon. So this is my current, at the moment, favorite tank. Sorry about all this back and forth. I'm trying to scoot around a chair that's in the way. But this is my current, I'm in love with it at the moment, tank. Of course my Gourami tank I'm always in love with, but this is my current favorite tank that I've been spending the most time looking at, and you can probably tell why. I'm just really liking this tank a lot. So moving on, we're going to look at my brackish tank for a few minutes too, because I got a lot going on with this tank. I know it's getting ready a long video here, but if you will notice, I've got air in there, and you know I don't like air bubbles in my tank, so I must have it in there for a reason. I do have it in there for a reason. I'm treating the tank for green slime. which is just cyanobacteria. It's often called blue-green slime algae, but it's not actually algae, it's cyanobacteria. I treated it for the red slime not long ago, and I thought it didn't have an effect, but it actually did. I wound up killing quite a bit of the red slime, and you can see I just sort of vacuumed the dead stuff off of the tank, and there's still some clumps of it in there I need to get out. I know this tank looks disgusting, but that water is very clean and it's just fine. There's no issue whatsoever with the water. It's just the tank itself looks gross, and I'm in the process of getting it all cleaned up. So right now we're doing a green slime treatment, and it's a mess because with the brackish water and the salt in the water, the bubbles tend to last longer, they tend to pop. So I've got water all over my light. I really hope it's as water resistant as it claims to be, and of course I'm getting salt accretion all over everything. That is one thing you will find with a brackish tank, much like a marine tank. You will get salt accretion on stuff, you know, just you got salt water there. It's not as salty as marine water, but it's still salt water. And you know, you're just going to get salt accretion on stuff. So once I'm done with this treatment, I'll have to wipe everything down, and you know, that's why I really don't like doing this treatment. The brackish tank is definitely more maintenance than my other tanks. I have to treat the water specially and do things differently with this tank. The salt itself is one more step in the maintenance. The salt accretion causes more maintenance, etc. But I am determined to get this tank really back to looking good. Now that I've got that rainbow fish out of here, my puffer is a lot happier. His belly has turned white again. Almost immediately he whitened up. He swims around the tank a lot more. The bumblebee gobies that were in there I thought vanished, and you know, I thought just disappeared over time. And all 5 of the remaining ones, I did lose one recently, but all 5 of the other ones are alive and healthy and swimming around and looking good. They had just gone to ground and were hiding all the time because of that stupid rainbow fish. So he's now, speaking of which, there's one of the little bumblebee gobies right there. So the rainbow fish is now being boisterous over in a tank where that actually has a positive effect, and it causes my other fish to school together, and he is out of this tank that has a positive effect and is causing my fish to come out of hiding. So I'm happy all the way around by moving that one simple fish. This is a QT tank right now. I've got about a dozen neons in there, and I think they are ultimately going to go in my T-bar tank once they get out of quarantine. In fact, it looks like I got a dead one up against the filter head right now. I also have some dwarf African clawed frogs in here, and I've lost about 4 of them from fungus that they came home from the store in. So the girl warned me that they'd been having some issues with them, and I said that that was okay because they were going in quarantine, and I did indeed have issues with several of them. A few of them still look fine, but we're waiting to see what happens, and nobody's going anywhere for quite a while until I'm 100% certain that they are not infected anymore and that I've treated them. You know, for now we're not going to worry too much about treating them with any medication because there's nobody in there that's showing any signs of infection. But we are waiting to see what happens before we do anything further. So always QT your stuff if you can. If you can't, you can't, but if you can, I highly recommend doing it. It's worth it if you can. My shrimp tank, my snail tank, I'm happy to say is finally getting back up into the swing. If you can see all the little dots and specks everywhere, those are little baby snails. So I finally had a little population explosion, and now it's just a matter of keeping fish food going in there every day to keep everybody fat and happy and growing, and then pretty soon I'll have a nice endless supply of snails for my puffer to eat. Those are eggshells in there. Contrary to popular belief, shrimp do not like really pure water. Or RO water, a lot of people suggest. They actually like harder water, and they need calcium in their water for their shells. So either put some calcium carbonate in there, use some harder water, or simply put some eggshells in your water like I do, and as the eggshells slowly dissolve, it'll put calcium in the water for you. Excuse me. So on to my gudgeon tank. Don't really know what's going on with this tank at the moment still. I think for now it's just going to remain my gudgeon tank. It's starting to brown up, so that's a sign that the tank is beginning to finally settle in. That is diatom algae. I'm not really sure what causes it, but whenever you get a new tank set up and established, you'll go through your cycle, everything will look fine, it'll be time to put fish in it, but you will still take some time for the tank to fully balance out. And in the meantime, you will have excess silicates in your water, and they will get used up by these diatom algae, and that's what all that brown stuff is. It wipes right off. It's really easy to clean up. I'm not concerned about it. I know what it is. It's just part of a new tank, sort of situating itself and getting settled in. So no issue there. This big wad of plants is just some pothos plant I threw in there for the hell of it for the moment. That's not necessarily going to stay in there. This is eventually going to be a planted tank, and it's going to do something. It's either going to be a planted tank with gudgeons in it, or it's going to be an Australian tank with some rainbow fish in the gudgeons. But these two so far have proven to breed like guppies in the springtime. So right now I'm just leaving them alone. I don't have my quarantine tank open to do anything with them if they breed, so I'm not too worried about the fact that they promptly eat all the eggs within a day or so of laying them. I've had 4 or 5 spawns in the last 3 weeks already, so no issues with it, you know, occurring again in the future. Once my QT is open, I'll be able to do something with that. And I'm probably going to do something simple, like put some slate or glass or something in this tank, hope they lay the eggs on it, and then I can simply remove the slate and put it in my QT, and then just have a lot of water flow and maybe an air stone to keep it really well circulated and oxygenated. And we'll see if we can't hatch out some babies, because I think that'd be really cool having some of these baby gudgeons. So that's all that's really going on with this tank. We're still just sort of waiting to see, and I will get that cleaned up here pretty soon. The 125, I've got nothing at all going on. I haven't really done anything to this tank. It could probably use a little bit of maintenance. I am starting to get a little bit of algal growth on the glass, and down here, if you look really closely, you can kind of see there's a little bit of stuff getting on the glass I could get in there and wipe off. But that's only for really nitpicky kind of stuff. If I'm doing photography or something, I do a lot of photography on my tanks. If you follow me on YouTube but not on Google+, you should look for me on Google+ and follow my aquaria collection. I do a lot of photography and GIFs and little short videos of my tanks and my fish that I do not do on YouTube. And everything in my aquaria collection is my photographs, and it's my animals and my tanks, so you can be assured of its authenticity. But for those purposes, I would want to get in there and clean the glass up a little bit. As far as everyday whatever, you know, whatever, you can't even tell that stuff's on the glass. I'm not worried about that at all. I did check the organics in there. My nitrates are under 20, and my phosphates were like at 1. So no issues with anything at all, really. I do have a little bit of that green Spirogyra algae, but now that I've cut way back on the feeding on this tank as well, it just stays under control. I do have a Gourami in here, a snakeskin Gourami right there, and Gouramis are wonderful algae eaters. So if you've got any of that long hair algae, get yourself a Gourami. As far as I know, pretty much all of them will do it, whether you're using the little dwarf Gourami in a 10-gallon tank, or you've got this big, you know, 8 or 9 inch snakeskin in a larger tank. Gouramis are fantastic algae eaters. Live bears are good algae eaters, guppies, mollies, things like that. So apparently keeping algae under control is as simple as keeping your organics way down and feeding on a fairly minimal, and I'll say fairly minimal based on compared to what I'm used to feeding, which was maximal. I fed a lot, and now I don't. I feed twice a day, maybe 3 times some days. I'm probably still more generous than, you know, your average person that will tell you to feed your fish 2 little pinches of food a day. I definitely do more than that. But with the amount of plants I have in there and the amount of biofiltration I have, I don't worry too much about it. My tanks, you know, seem to be running just fine. I'm not too worried about what's going on with them. So that is it. That is pretty much the look around the world. Again, I got nothing really going on in here. I just wanted to chat a little bit and ramble on and give you guys a good look at it. This is a really pretty tank. I really do like looking at this one too. So thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're not already. You don't want to miss anything I got coming up. I do have some other stuff in the works. I didn't really get into it tonight because we had plenty of other stuff to talk about. But if you're subscribed, you won't miss any of it, and it will be some good stuff coming up. So thanks for watching this one, and I'll see you real soon on the next one.